guys, welcome back to another episode of Horror Flicks and Chill with Alex Arson. Just in time for the Halloween spirit, just in time for Spirit of Halloween to be opening up and all the good horror movies coming out this year. We're going to do another episode about Candyman, this time the new one, the one that came out in 2021. The first episode of Horror Flicks and Chill was the 1992 Candyman. And for the 10th episode today, we're talking about the remake or reimagining or requel, Candyman 2021. So this one is special as well because this is the first review I've done about a recent movie. You know, I haven't really talked about anything recent so far, but this one is going to be a good one. I had to because it's the first horror movie I saw when I was a kid, you know, the original Candyman. So I had to do something about this new one. I had to check it out and I had to do a review on it as well. So thank you for checking it out, and I'll see you guys later. Candyman is about an artist named Anthony McCoy who begins exploring the history of Cabrini Green and comes across the story of Candyman. And as he's trying to unravel the story of what's happening with the legend of Candyman, he starts to unravel his own particular history with the Candyman, and he also finds out about his destiny and what brings him back to Cabrini Green as well. This is written by Nia DeCosta and Jordan Peele, directed by Nia DeCosta, starring Yahya Abdul-Mateen II and Tiana Paris. So if you remember in the first one, what happens is you see Candyman, you see the reaction of the person that's facing him, and they cut away. You hear what's happening through sound effects and screaming and all these things, and then you cut back and you're seeing Candyman shows up behind the person and things of that nature. It's done in a style where you're registering what's happening, but you're not really seeing everything happen and take place, especially not in the first one. You're not really seeing that as much. And so this one is kind of similar to that in that particular vein. And if you look at other movies, for example, like Texas Chainsaw Massacre, with that being a chainsaw, it's the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre is not as bloody and as gory as people really remember it to be. I think the most violent scene was with the hammer, really. Other than that, when it comes to a movie that has chainsaw in the title, you're not really seeing Leatherface take a chainsaw and put it entirely through a person and throwing them from one place to the other. You'll see all of that type of gore within the sequels, but in the very first one, you don't really see a lot of blood. You don't see a lot of gore. It's all cut in a particular style where you're able to process what's happening and piece it together. But when you look at it shot by shot, frame by frame, you're not really seeing what you think you're seeing. Just same as Psycho, the same as Halloween. Halloween, there isn't any blood in that movie at all. You're not really seeing too much in Halloween. Your mind is piecing it all together, and you're able to understand what's happening, but it's not as gory as the sequels would be as time would go on. So in a way, we're in a particular place where we're so used to seeing all these things happening right in front of our face, and special effects has gotten so much better that you're able to see these things. And with the rise of torture porn back then, you're so used to seeing these things now, but they definitely took it back in a way that I felt was more along the lines of the first film, where you're not really seeing too much of gore, and it's not so much about gore, it's more about the story. Candyman was always more about a particular story than an actual thing about gore and blood and guts and things of that nature. It was a little bit more to the story, than with blood and guts. There's a thing about, gore that took place in the 80s where it really wasn't so much about story, it was more about what we can do with the special effects that we have. And with the money that we're getting now with these films, we're able to create these monsters and create these scenes and decapitations and mutilations and things with the special effects that they were having at that time, and it was all state of the art back in the 80s. And so there was a tradition that was going on at the time that's been called back now into the future, where people are actually they're wanting to see that more. And I feel like Candyman was dialing it back and taking it back to the first film. So Candyman is not as violent as people remember it to be, or what they wanted it to be. From what I've seen and from what I've heard from certain perspectives, certain people that felt that it wasn't as bloody or as gory as the first. And
I don't know why, but she said his name the last time.
Candyman.
She turned out the lights.
This is the first Candyman where he's not defeated in the end. The villain, the bad guy, Candyman, is usually defeated with some mirror or being burned and all these things. This is the first time that he actually survives in the end. And with that, he's able to tell his story to everyone. And what I love about this particular Candyman is the fact that it's not just one, which is Daniel Robitaille, the Tony Todd character. There's so many other Candyman characters. Candyman Hive. There's so many other people where something horrible happened and took place, and they're cursed for the rest of their life, And Candyman, on a side note, Candyman is not so much of a slasher film as a lot of people like to kind of classify him, like Jason, Freddy, and Michael. He's more cursed. He's not doing these things because he really truly loves it and he's all about that. It's a tragic story. It's a horrible, tragic experience that he had gone through. And he's constantly, eternally, forevermore going to be confined to this particular role of being the boogeyman and the man behind the mirror type of thing. But having his story being told, and not just his story, but all the other, Candymen throughout history, throughout time, their stories are going to be told to the world. So no longer will we see Candyman as the villain and the bad guy. I mean, at least the sympathetic villain or a sympathetic bad guy, where you understand that this is what happened and this is what's going on and this is why he is the way that he is. And with art, that's how his story is going to be told. And I think that that's a very poetic thing that goes all the way back to the first one, because Daniel Robitaille is a artist and a painter, and that's how he died. His painting hand was taken away from him and replaced with a hook. And everyone else that has ever been under the Candyman mantle, their story is going to be told through art as well. And I think that that's a really cool idea to tie in the past Candyman and bringing it into the future, that there's more than one and that there's so many other ones that we don't know about. That's what I love about this particular Candyman, is that it's the idea that it's a hive, it's more than one, and they all had something horrible and tragic happen to them that cursed them and made them into these phantom figures that we are afraid of. This is also the first Candyman film that I've noticed that has a black protagonist. There's a black hero in this movie. So if we have a black antagonist, a black villain, and then we have a black hero. And in this particular case, we have Tiana Paris, who's the final girl in this one. And so we have a black final girl for the first time. And I love Virginia Madsen, love her work. But this time I was able to see a black woman experience this and see this through her eyes and through her experience and survive it. And that's what I think is really cool and really different with this one. To have Candyman survive at the end, to have a black final girl. And also, this one has a higher body count than the other ones, really. I believe it's 13 people that died in this particular movie, and that's a pretty big body count compared to the original. The original, I think, was 3 or 4 people probably died in that one. To be honest, a few people. It wasn't as much as this one, but with that being said, I feel like people felt as though that it didn't satisfy their bloodlust. It wasn't as gory or as violent and things of that nature. But when I really revisit the first few films, especially the first one, it's not as gory as we remember it to be. As far as on a Saw level, where you're seeing everything that's being put through that person and things that you're seeing, the penetrating the body and all that. You're not really seeing the hook really go through people in that particular sense, not in the first one. But that's the interesting thing about that.
Candyman. Katrina. Let's go.
Guys.
Wait, I forgot my vape.
No, I don't think you should. Boop. Boop.
What are you doing? Oh my god, guys, stop being so stupid.